questions in the chat box. And also towards the end, also we please unmute and speak out your questions. My whole team here is ready to fully support you. And if there are queries which are beyond our capabilities, we will also reach out to the right people and try to get the solutions to you. So with this, once again, I welcome you, and I request now my colleague Anand to take, and his team, Gunjan, Shah, and Vinu, and others to take us through the presentation. To you, Anand. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So with that, I'll quickly run through the program for today. We will have a few slides explaining some of the important instructions for filling up the dashboard, as the focus today is largely on the operational aspects of filling up the dashboard on time for the latest updates that the ministries have up until 31st of March. So that will be the focus today. We will have some instructions shared with you on the presentation, followed by a demonstration, and then we'll spend most of our time answering queries and through the discussions. So with that, I'll request Aishwarya to just quickly go through some instructions.
Thank you, Anand. So before we move on to the dashboard demonstration, we would like to highlight a few things that all the ministries need to consider while updating the dashboard. So essentially, there are two scenarios. The first scenario is where the ministry admin user itself updates the data on the dashboard. And this scenario is applicable for smaller ministries or ministries that have very few schemes. So in the first scenario, ministry does not want to create a data entry user. So what does the ministry have to do under this scenario? The ministry nodal officer or the DSU head registers themselves as the ministry admin user. Once they register, this approval request goes to the DMO admin user. So once DMO admin user approves the MD admin user, the user will now be able to log in. Once the MD admin logs in, there are essentially two major things that they need to do. Firstly, the admin user can add or edit the strategy action points under the strategy tracking module. Once they do this under the strategy tracking module, they can go to question module. Under part A, there is a section called action plan, and there is a refresh button under this section. So once the admin refreshes this, clicks on the refresh button, the compliance percentage gets updated. After that, the ministry admin can update the remaining sections of part A of the questionnaire. This can be followed by updating data for part B for all the schemes and NSIs. So once the data has been updated end to end, the ministry can either save it as draft, get approvals on the responses that they have filled from a competent authority within the ministry, and once the approval is taken on all the responses, then the ministry admin can click on the submit button for part A and part B. Then the second scenario is where the ministry admin creates a data entry user. Now this will be applicable for larger ministries and ministries that have more number of schemes. So the initial few steps are the ministry nodal officer DSU head registers an admin user. The admin user is approved by DMO. Once it is approved, the admin can do two things. So either the DMO, the data entry users can self-register themselves. If they self-register, this approval request will go to the ministry admin user, and the ministry admin user will have to use the approval request module to approve these data entry users. So this is one step. The ministry admin can themselves create data entry user. Since they have themselves created using the user management module, there is no need for approval. Once this is done, data entry user is generated and can now log in. After the data entry users log in, the ministry admin needs to assign the schemes and NSIs to a particular data entry user under the master module. Once the schemes are assigned, only then these schemes will reflect for the data entry users in the drop downs under part B. First, they need to update the strategy action module. This will be followed by updating part A, clicking on refresh button under part A. Then they will have to update part B, and the data entry users can then click on submit. These updates will go to the admin for approval, and the admin, after vetting all the responses, can click on submit button. I would now
all these instructions will be shared with all the members subsequent to the presentation as well. We have only shown these slides for the time being so that the flow at a very basic concept level is clear to everyone. Now we will go through the entire process in detail. I think that is the most important part. We will go through the process in detail, and these will be shared with you subsequently so that you can refer to them as a ready reference for operating the dashboard. So with that, I'll request Vaishvi to explain the entire operation of the dashboard in detail. Yeah.
Thank you, Anand. So, जैसा ऐश्वर्या ने बताया, we have two users for each ministry. One is admin and one is data entry user. And अभी हम throughout the dashboard presentation हम scenario 2 पे ज़्यादा focus करेंगे, where ministries are creating or have data entry users to fill the questionnaire for certain schemes. So उसके लिए अभी जो आपको स्क्रीन पे दिख रहा है, ये लॉगिन पेज है, लैंडिंग पेज है फॉर द मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन. इसमें टॉप राइट पे एडमिन एंड उनका नाम भी लिखा होता है, जस्ट टू कंफर्म दैट दिस इज द एडमिन लैंडिंग पेज. इस पे लेफ्ट में आपको 6-7 मॉड्यूल्स दिखते हैं, डैशबोर्ड मॉड्यूल्स, जिसमें से सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट एंड सबसे स्टार्टिंग के स्टेप्स जो है अप्रूवल रिक्वेस्ट, डैशबोर्ड मॉड्यूल और यूजर मैनेजमेंट से होते हैं. सो जैसा ऐश्वर्या ने बताया, डेटा एंट्री यूजर जो है दो तरीके से बन सकते हैं. वन इज जहां पर वो लॉग इन करके रजिस्टर करे एंड उसका रिक्वेस्ट डेटा एडमिन मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन यूजर के पास आए, या फिर दूसरा जहां पर वो मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन खुद से क्रिएट करे डेटा एंट्री यूजर को. सो अप्रूवल रिक्वेस्ट में वो सभी डेटा एंट्री यूजर्स जिन्होंने रजिस्टर किया है उनकी अप्रूवल रिक्वेस्ट विजिबल होगी मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन को, और वहां पर वो जाकर उस रिक्वेस्ट को अप्रूव कर सकते हैं. इसके बाद अगर मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन चाहते हैं कि हम खुद ही से डेटा एंट्री यूजर को ऐड करें, तो वो यूजर मैनेजमेंट वाले डैशबोर्ड मॉड्यूल में जाकर ऐड यूजर कर सकते हैं और यहाँ पर डेटा एंट्री यूजर को ऐड कर सकते हैं. ये सब होने के बाद मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन को यूजर मैनेजमेंट में सारे के सारे यूजर्स दिखने लगते हैं. जैसे कि अभी हमने एक यूजर को अप्रूव किया था बाय द नेम आनंद. सो उनका नाम भी टॉप पे हमें दिख रहा है, उनका रोल दिख रहा है और उनका स्टेटस दिख रहा है. सो विद दिस डेटा एंट्री यूजर क्रिएट हो चुके हैं सिस्टम में. नेक्स्ट स्टेप वुड बी टू असाइन स्कीम टू दिस डेटा एंट्री यूजर. उसके लिए हम मास्टर मॉड्यूल के सब मॉड्यूल स्कीम्स में जाएंगे एंड वहां पर स्कीम्स असाइन करेंगे. सो यहाँ पर पहले एक जो कॉलम है जो किसी भी स्कीम के लिए, किसी भी मिनिस्ट्री के लिए भी इंपॉर्टेंट है, इनएक्टिव और एक्टिव वाला कॉलम, विच इज सेकेंड लास्ट कॉलम, और थोड़ा स्क्रॉल करने पे विजिबल होता है. जो भी स्कीम्स एक्टिव है सिर्फ उन्हीं स्कीम्स को कंसिडर किया जा रहा है फॉर DGQI Q4 FY 21-22, एंड उन्हीं स्कीम्स के को एलोकेट या असाइन किया जा सकता है किसी डेटा एंट्री यूजर को. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, नेशनल मीन्स का मेरिट स्कॉलरशिप हैज बीन असाइन टू डेटा एंट्री यूजर 1. अगर इसको एडिट करना हो या किसी नए स्कीम को या किसी नए यूजर को कोई स्कीम एलोकेट करनी हो, तो एडिट बटन में जाकर यहाँ पर असाइन टू में चेंज करा जा सकता है उस डेटा एंट्री यूजर के नाम के हिसाब से, और उसके बाद उसको सेव कर सकते हैं। इसके थ्रू आप देखेंगे कि यहाँ पे जो स्कीम है उसका असाइनमेंट डेटा एंट्री यूजर का अपडेट हो जाता है। सो अब जब हम इस डेटा एंट्री यूजर के लॉगिन पेज पे जाकर लॉगिन करेंगे तो हमें नेशनल मींस का मेरिट स्कॉलरशिप स्कीम दिखेगी जिसका क्वेश्चनएयर अपडेट करा जा सकता है। सो फॉर दिस मैं आपको दूसरे लॉगिन पेज पे ले जाऊंगी विच इज डेटा एंट्री यूजर का लॉगिन पेज का लैंडिंग पेज। इसमें आपको दो मॉड्यूल्स लेफ्ट साइड में दिखेंगे, वन इज क्वेश्चनएयर एंड वन इज स्ट्रैटेजी ट्रैकिंग मॉड्यूल। इसमें क्वेश्चनएयर में के सब मॉड्यूल में जाकर आप क्वेश्चनएयर को वो डेटा एंट्री यूजर भर सकता है। जस्ट टू रीइटरेट, हमारे क्वेश्चनएयर के दो पार्ट्स हैं, एक पार्ट ए जो कि मिनिस्ट्री लेवल पे भरा जाता है और एक पार्ट बी जो हर एक स्कीम के लिए अलग अलग से भरा जाता है और हर एक एनएसआई के लिए भी अलग अलग से भरा जाता है। सो अगर किसी मिनिस्ट्री के पास 3 स्कीम्स हैं तो उसको पार्ट बी 3 बार भरना पड़ेगा, जबकि पार्ट ए एक बार ही भरना पड़ेगा। तो यहाँ पर हम पहले पार्ट बी को समझेंगे। जब हम पार्ट बी सिलेक्ट करते हैं इस डेटा एंट्री यूजर के लिए, पहले हम सिलेक्ट ईयर करेंगे, अप्रोप्रिएट एंड क्वार्टर 4 करेंगे, एंड यहाँ पर जब सिलेक्ट स्कीम देखते हैं तो हम इवन दो इस मिनिस्ट्री के पास 3 स्कीम्स थी, सिर्फ 2 स्कीम यहाँ पर विजिबल होती हैं क्योंकि इस डेटा एंट्री यूजर को मैप्ड या असाइन सिर्फ ये 2 स्कीम्स थी। तीसरी स्कीम इस यूजर को विजिबल नहीं है। जो भी स्कीम का डेटा उनको अपडेट करना है उस स्कीम को यहाँ पर सिलेक्ट करेंगे एंड उसके बाद आप हर एक क्वेश्चन को जैसा उसका आंसर अपडेट हुआ है उस हिसाब से एडिट करेंगे। क्योंकि ये डेटा क्वार्टर 3 एंड क्वार्टर 2 से आ रहा है, इसलिए ऑलरेडी ये प्री फिल्ड है और ओनली जो चेंजेस मिनिस्ट्री के क्वेश्चनएयर में हुए हैं वो मिनिस्ट्री को एडिट करने पड़ेंगे, जिसकी वजह से टाइम भी सेव होगा और क्विकली ये क्वेश्चनएयर फिल होगा। तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर किसी मिनिस्ट्री को अपना आंसर चेंज करना है यूज ऑफ टेक में, तो वो आराम से अपना आंसर एडिट करके उस हिसाब से फिर सबमिट कर सकते हैं अपना पार्ट बी। एक और चीज, इसमें कुछ क्वेश्चंस में यहाँ पर स्किप पैटर्न है जो आई लाइक टू एक्सप्लेन। फॉर एग्जाम्पल जो डेटा जनरेशन थीम है पार्ट बी की, उसमें क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 है विच इज कलेक्टेड डेटा रिपोर्टेड डिजिटली, येस और नॉट। इसमें अगर येस करते हैं तो आपको बाकी फॉलो अप क्वेश्चंस दिखते हैं। हाउएवर अगर आप नो सिलेक्ट करते हैं तो बाकी सारे क्वेश्चंस स्किप हो जाते हैं। सो ये इंपॉर्टेंट है कि कुछ क्वेश्चंस अगर आपके क्वेश्चनएयर में स्किप हुए हुए हैं वो इसलिए होंगे क्योंकि लास्ट क्वार्टर में आपके आंसर उस हिसाब से होंगे। अगर अब आप उसको अपडेट करेंगे, जैसे कि अगर इसी क्वेश्चन को किसी मिनिस्ट्री ने अपडेट करके येस किया तो उसको बाकी सारे क्वेश्चंस भी दिखने लगेंगे। वंस ये सारे चेंजेस मिनिस्ट्री का डेटा एंट्री यूजर कर लेता है, वो सेव एज ड्राफ्ट कर सकता है अपने इस फॉर्म को, इस पार्ट बी को उस स्कीम के लिए। एंड हमने एक और फंक्शनैलिटी इस डैशबोर्ड में दी है विच इज प्रिंट। इस ऑप्शन की मदद से डेटा एंट्री यूजर फॉर्म को प्रिंट करके इंटरनली सारे अप्रूवल्स ले सकता है एंड फाइनली जब वो अप्रूवल्स इंटरनली हो जाते हैं वो इस फॉर्म को सबमिट कर सकता है। जब ये फॉर्म सबमिट हो जाएगा तो मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन के पास अप्रूवल के लिए रिक्वेस्ट जाएगी एंड मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन फिर वहां से अप्रूव करके इस फॉर्म को फाइनली सबमिट करेंगे टू DMUT। तो इस वंस दिस इज डन, ये फॉर्म सबमिट हो जाएगा फॉर मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन। सो अब मैं आपको वापस मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन के पेज पे लेके जाऊंगी जहां पर हम देख सकते हैं कि ये फॉर्म सबमिट हुआ है या नहीं। तो यहाँ पर क्वेश्चनएयर में जाकर क्वेश्चनएयर रिस्पॉन्स अप्रूवल मॉड्यूल में जाएंगे और पार्ट बी अगर मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन सिलेक्ट करेंगे, वहां पर एप्रोप्रिएट ईयर एंड क्वार्टर सिलेक्ट करने के बाद उनको 3 तरह के स्टेटस दिखेंगे, वन इज ड्राफ्ट, वन इज पेंडिंग, वन इज अप्रूव्ड। ड्राफ्ट का मतलब वो सारी स्कीम जो डेटा एंट्री यूजर अभी भी ड्राफ्ट मोड में भर रहा है और वो अभी तक मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन के पास अप्रूवल के लिए नहीं आई है। पेंडिंग मतलब वो सारी स्कीम्स जो डेटा एंट्री यूजर ने अपने एंड से सबमिट कर दी है और अभी मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन को उनको अप्रूव करना बाकी है। और अप्रूव्ड मतलब वो सारी स्कीम्स जो एमडी के एडमिन ने भी अप्रूव कर दी है और वो फाइनली सबमिट हो गई है पोर्टल पे। तो यहाँ पर जब भी मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन को अप्रूव करनी है कोई स्कीम तो वो पेंडिंग पे जाकर स्कीम जो पेंडिंग है वही सिर्फ ड्रॉप डाउन में आएगी, उसको सिलेक्ट करेंगे। वो क्रॉस चेक कर सकते हैं वेदर द आंसर्स आर राइट और नॉट और उसके बाद उसको अप्रूव या रिजेक्ट कर सकते हैं। यहाँ पर एक कमेंट बॉक्स भी है जिसमें अगर किसी मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन को रिजेक्ट करना है फॉर्म तो वो कमेंट्स ऐड कर सकते हैं और रीजंस दे सकते हैं कि डेटा एंट्री यूजर को क्या चेंजेस करने की जरूरत है एंड बेस्ड ऑन दैट वो फॉर्म अप्रूव और रिजेक्ट करके आगे उसको प्रोसीड कर सकते हैं। अगर वो रिजेक्ट करते तो फिर से डेटा एंट्री यूजर को अपने पोर्टल पे वो क्वेश्चनर दिखने लगेगा। इसके साथ साथ स्ट्रैटेजी ट्रैकिंग मॉड्यूल भी है जिसमें एक्शन पॉइंट्स अपडेट होते हैं। एक्शन पॉइंट्स के लिए आप पार्ट ए से भी जा सकते हैं वरना स्ट्रैटेजी ट्रैकिंग मॉड्यूल के थ्रू भी ये अपडेट किए जा सकते हैं। इसमें हर एक जो स्ट्रैटेजी एक्शन पॉइंट है उसकी कंप्लीशन डेट को एडिट नहीं किया जा सकता, सिर्फ उसके स्टेटस को अपडेट कर सकते हैं। सो जैसे कि यहाँ पर आप कोई आपका एक एक्शन पॉइंट है जो इस क्वार्टर ड्यू है उसको आप एडिट कर सकते हैं और उसकी कंप्लीशन डेट के हिसाब से और उसका एक्शन पॉइंट स्टेटस के हिसाब से उसका स्टेटस अपडेट करके उसको सेव कर सकते हैं। ये मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन ने अभी किया है। अगर यही काम किसी डेटा एंट्री यूजर को करना हो तो उसके लिए हम उनके स्ट्रैटेजी ट्रैकिंग मॉड्यूल में जाएंगे, वहां पर वो अपने एंड से फिर उस के स्टेटस को एडिट करेंगे और फिर वहां पर अपडेट करेंगे जो फिर से अप्रूवल के लिए मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन के पास आएगा। सो जब ये हो जाएगा तो मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन दोबारा अपने पोर्टल पर जाकर स्ट्रैटेजी ट्रैकिंग मॉड्यूल के अंडर अप्रूवल सब मॉड्यूल को सिलेक्ट करके किसी भी एक्शन पॉइंट को अप्रूव या रिजेक्ट कर सकते हैं। एडिट बटन में जाकर अगर उनको अप्रूव लगता है तो वो अप्रूव करके उसको सबमिट कर सकते हैं। अगर उनको रिजेक्ट करना है तो उसका वो रीजन लिखकर रिजेक्ट भी कर सकते हैं। क्वेश्चनर में हमारे पास एक और पार्ट है, पार्ट ए। पार्ट ए के लिए भी अगेन दो तरीके से फिल हो सकता है, या तो मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन डायरेक्टली फिल करे अपने डैशबोर्ड से या फिर डेटा एंट्री यूजर उसको फिल करे, बट एक ही यूजर उसको फिल कर सकता है क्योंकि पार्ट ए हम मिनिस्ट्री लेवल पे भरते हैं। सो पार्ट ए में आप अगेन ईयर और क्वार्टर अपडेट करेंगे एंड यहाँ पे जो भी स्टेटस है वो अपडेट करेंगे मिनिस्ट्री के लिए। मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंटली एक्शन प्लान जो थीम है उसमें क्वेश्चन 6 जो है उसमें आपको अपलोड करनी है पीडीएफ। फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर हम ये पीडीएफ अपलोड कर रहे हैं तो यहाँ पे उसका नेम विजिबल हो जाएगा, उसका साइज विजिबल हो जाएगा। एंड क्वेश्चन 7 में आपको अपने एक्शन पॉइंट्स एडिट करने पड़ेंगे ताकि उनका कंप्लायंस हम समझ सके। तो आप एडिट एक्शन पॉइंट्स में जाकर दूसरा टैब यहाँ पे खुलता है और वहां पर फिर से जैसे अभी हमने आपको समझाया आप उन एक्शन पॉइंट्स का स्टेटस अपडेट कर सकते हैं। उसके बाद मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंटली यहाँ पर आपको रिफ्रेश बटन प्रेस करना पड़ेगा ताकि वो एक्शन पॉइंट का जो भी आपने स्टेटस अपडेट किया है वो एक्चुअली विजिबल हो और स्टोर हो जाए डैशबोर्ड के डेटा में। वंस दिस इज डन ये सबमिट और प्रोसीड कर सकते हैं। अगर ये मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन है तो वो डायरेक्टली कर सकते हैं, अगर वो डेटा एंट्री यूजर है तो वो जब सबमिट करेंगे तो दोबारा से मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन के पास रिक्वेस्ट आएगी टू अप्रूव इट। जब मिनिस्ट्री एडमिन पार्ट ए पार्ट बी सबको एंड स्ट्रैटेजी एक्शन पॉइंट्स को सबमिट कर देंगे, उसके बाद लास्ट पे उनको एक कॉन्ग्रेचुलेशंस ईमेल आएगी डैशबोर्ड DGQI की तरफ से, विच विल कंफर्म कि उन्होंने जो फॉर्म भरा है वो सबमिट हो गया है पूरी तरीके से। 2 एडिशनल मॉड्यूल्स जो यहाँ पर आपको दिख रहे हैं वो परफॉर्मेंस एंड कंप्लायंस रिपोर्ट्स हैं, जो मिनिस्ट्री यूज कर सकती है अपने पुराने क्वार्टर की परफॉर्मेंस को देखने के लिए, एंड यहाँ पर डिटेल परफॉर्मेंस के लिए वो साइड में क्लिक भी कर सकती है। So with that, we have come to the end of the dashboard demonstration. Now I'll hand it over to Aishwarya.
Thank you, Vaishvi. So there are certain things that the ministry should keep in mind while updating data on the dashboard. We're just waiting for the screen to be sent. So the data is to be updated for financial year 21-22 quarter 4. The schemes and NSI can be exempted only in the next financial year. So we are continuing with all the schemes that have already been entered by the ministry so far. Please note that the names, the status of the schemes and NSIs should be checked while updating the dashboard. This is because we are receiving a lot of queries from the ministries saying that this scheme was exempted, but however, this is still showing on the dashboard. Please note that these exempted schemes are showing as inactive. So that is why they are not considered under this round. Now, all the ministries can print Part A separately and Part B separately. Please note that whenever you're saving all the responses in draft mode, you can take a printout of these draft mode forms and internally discuss and approve the same before finally submitting the questionnaire. Only ministry admin can add the strategy action point. Both admin and data entry user can edit the action points, but adding of the strategy action point is something that only the ministry admin can do. Now, under action points, the original expected date of completion is something that cannot be changed once it is entered and submitted by the user. You can only add a revised date of completion separately in the same module. The users are requested to submit Part A only after making all the changes in the strategy tracking module. And this has to be approved by the ministry admin. Once we get the approvals, only then request the ministry to click on the submit button. And in order to do all these steps, one most important step is to create the ministry admin user. So far, all ministries have created, except for 4. These ministries are Civil Aviation, Corporate Affairs, Defense, and Development of Northeastern Region. We would request these 4 ministries to create the ministry admin by end of today. Thank you.
We'll now open up for the Q&A session. But before allowing the participants to unmute, we have received some questions in the chat box. So we'll first take up the questions in the chat box. I'll request Veenu to moderate.
Right. Thanks, Kunjan. So the first question that we have currently on the chat box is, in case there are a number of users in the ministry and scheme details are required to be filled by the scheme people, which is the data entry user, then how will the admin user decide the data has been filled by the scheme, which has been filled for the scheme is right or wrong? I would request Anand to please take this up.
Yeah. Essentially, if you look at why we have created these 2 levels, आपकी बात बिल्कुल सही है कि अगर हमारे यहाँ 4 स्कीम डिविजन्स हैं और नोडल ऑफिसर 1 है और वो 4 स्कीम डिविजन्स में से इंफॉर्मेशन ऐड हुई है, तो जरूरी नहीं है कि तो जो मिनिस्ट्री के नोडल ऑफिसर 1 हैं उनको वो डेटा सही है कि नहीं भरा गया, जो डेटा भरा गया वो सही है कि नहीं वो पता चले। वो बिल्कुल सही सवाल है, लेकिन हमने ये 2 लेवल क्यों रखे हैं? हमने एसेंशियली 2 लेवल एक डेटा की करेक्टनेस को चेक करने के लिए नहीं रखे हैं। उसका मेन पर्पस है कि हर मिनिस्ट्री के पास एक ऑप्शन होना चाहिए कि उसको एक बार एंटर किया है तो एटलीस्ट एक लेवल पे उसको करेक्ट करने का मौका दिया जाए। और अगर वो डेटा एंट्री यूजर आपने क्रिएट किया जो मिनिस्ट्री में डिवीजन में है, वी वुड अज्यूम कि अगर वो एंटर कर रहे हैं तो वो अपने स्कीम डिवीजन के कंसर्न जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी या हेड ऑफ दैट स्कीम डिवीजन का अप्रूवल लेके डेटा एंटर कर रहे हैं। और उनसे ये भी एक तरह से एज ए नोडल ऑफिसर आपको रिक्वेस्ट करनी चाहिए कि एक बार वो एंटर करे तो वो आपको आके एक बार मिल के बता दें कि हाँ ये एंटर हो गया है, ताकि उसका फाइनल अप्रूवल हो उसके पहले इनकेस इफ दे वांट टू मेक सर्टेन चेंजेस दे कैन डू सो। तो ये सिर्फ एक ऑप्शन रखा गया है टू बी एबल टू करेक्ट। अदरवाइज आइडियली हमें 3 तरह के यूजर बनाने पड़ते हैं, क्योंकि हर स्कीम डिवीजन में भी फिर एक एडमिन होना चाहिए था और एक अप्रूवर होना चाहिए था, एक एंटरर होना चाहिए था। अब 3 तरह के यूजर्स में हमने पुराने हमने दूसरे जो सिस्टम्स हम चलाते हैं, जैसे आप लोगों में से कई लोग जानते होंगे कि एक हमारा दूसरा भी डैशबोर्ड है ग्लोबल इंडेक्सेस रिलेटेड, तो इन सब में हमें फीडबैक मिला है मिनिस्ट्रीज से, जिसके आधार पे हमने ये रिलेटिवली सिंपल सिस्टम रखा है DGQI के लिए, ताकि इसमें सिर्फ 2 लेवल रहे और एक सिंपल क्वेश्चन इसको 2 लेवल पे अप्रूव करके आगे काम किया जाए। सो द एसेंस इज to have given option of correction, which is by 2 levels.
Right. So the next question is on the data strategy pillar, and I'll take both the questions together. The first one is the ministry is saying that they have completed all the applications in their staging server, and currently the security audit is going on. They are yet to port over to the NIC for user access. So can they state in the strategy action point that it has been completed? So this is the first part of the question. The second is that under this action points, the list of action points follow exactly the questions in the questionnaire. So Gunjan, would you like to take this?
Yes. So, sir, with respect to your first question, till the point of time that the dashboards are not fully developed and the applications are not fully running on NIC, I would say the final final NIC server, the action point cannot be written as completed. So it would still be in progress. So to answer the first question, the answer would be no. Till that point of time, it is not ported over to NIC server. Then I think the second question is with respect to the themes in the action plan. So, sir, we would like to clarify here that there are 2 kinds of themes that we are looking. So, we need to first of all understand that first of all we have, sir, the questionnaire where the ministry needs to provide details on how what is the where they need to provide the details on various MIS systems that they are running, and we are collecting data on the features of those MIS systems. So we have several themes: data generation, data security, so on and so forth in the questionnaire. On the second hand, then we have asked them, based on the scores that are being generated by this questionnaire, we have asked the ministries to come up with a detailed action plan. And then as a part of this action plan, we had asked them that for each action point, they can have a theme. So these thematic mapping is actually up to the ministries. It is not corresponding to the questionnaire. For example, if a ministry decides that they need to undertake a lot of technological development for various schemes. So technology development can be one theme, and there can be various kinds of action points mapped in that theme. So therefore, there is no one-to-one mapping between the themes in the questionnaire and the themes in the action plan. So therefore, the action points are defined by the ministry, they are added by the ministry. The themes of the action plan are also up to the ministry. In essence, the action plan needs to be developed by the ministry according to themselves. It does not have to exactly follow the questionnaire. And I would just like to take a minute to then answer the third question also related to this aspect itself, that you have prepared all the documents with reference to themes. Shall we use the same document for multiple questions under the same theme? So, sir, again, the action plan document has to be a consolidated document. It's good that you have went into the details of each and every theme, and you have detailed action points on each and every theme in the questionnaire also. But at the ministry level, it should be a single document which should then be dealing with each scheme and each theme in detail. and therefore you can use the same document for uploading your action points in the strategy tracking module, but as such it does not have any specific relation to your scores in the for the questionnaire module.
But actually the question is, so shall we use the same document for multiple questions under the same theme? So I would request if the person can kindly unmute and ask the question. Because
good afternoon. This is Dr. Raju from NTC PwC. I'm
Right.
the one who raised these questions. So basically, what we had done is we couldn't differentiate between action plan and strategic action points. Action plan outline is more generic. So whether we need to generate a document separately for action plan and for strategic action point, what type of document we need to upload for each of those strategic action points.
Yeah.
That is
So
why we couldn't differentiate.
Right. So I'll just mention the outline of the action plan requires you to list down at the end for every theme, for every scheme, and also for pillar 1 and pillar 3 at the ministry level, list of action points. Now, there is no difference between action points or strategic action points. On the dashboard, the terminology says strategic action points, but it is basically the same set of action points you have identified in your original action plan, and they have to be reflected on the dashboard as it is, and you have to track your completion or compliance on whether those action points and what is the status of those action points on the dashboard. So when you upload it on the dashboard, it will just be a list of action points, but then on the every quarter you will update the status of whether it has been completed or not as per the plan.
Also, just to come in, I think, sir, your confusion is coming from the point where for every action point, we have given the option for the ministry to upload any document. So that does not mean that it has to be a separate document for every action point. That's an optional feature. In case, for example, you made some progress on some action point and you want to showcase the progress via some documented document with the DMO, then the ministry can use that feature.
Yeah, it's basically to showcase the completion of the action plan. Let's say one of the action item was that we will build this XYZ dashboard. Now let's say it has been completed. So then you might want to upload the screenshots, upload the documentation of that particular dashboard to further demonstrate that it has actually been completed. So it's an optional field. It's up to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks. So the next question that we have on the chat box is that for PFMS's last mile linkage, will it be possible for Niti Aayog to provide a standard template which can be followed, and it will be helpful if DMO nodal officers can support the ministries in providing links to other ministries who have successfully completed this. So Anand, would you like to take this up?
Yes, so we can definitely provide this support from our side.
We'll share that, sir.
We'll share it with everyone.
I think we just missed one part of your question regarding if the action point is completed, is the revised date applicable or not applicable? So I'll just take a minute to also answer that. So even if the action point gets completed, let's suppose it does not get completed at the original date of completion, but 2 or 3 months after that. And therefore, to put in the actual date of completion, you might want to put in that detail in the revised date of completion. So therefore, it is applicable for both yet to be both in progress items as well as completed items.
Thank you. We'll take the next question on which refers to the dashboard. So is there any provision to maintain the history of rejection of the data of schemes on the portal, on the DGQI dashboard? Aishwarya, please.
So thank you for that question. Currently, the dashboard doesn't have a feature where the user can see the rejected history. But we can definitely look into it and provide the same for all the ministries. We will get back to, we will think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Then there's a fundamental query on what are the schemes and what are the type of schemes which are exempted from the DGQI exercise from the current round. Gunjan?
When we are covering schemes, sir, we are essentially looking at the central sector and the centrally sponsored schemes of the ministries. And from the last year, our convention has been that we used the India budget document for each and every ministry, the detailed demand for grants to refer to the list of schemes for that ministry. To come answer the second question about what type of schemes are exempted, usually if there are schemes which are about to be soon closed and therefore it is not very feasible to develop a it's not required to develop a very robust digital system for them at this stage, then these schemes can be exempted. Similarly, if there are certain schemes which are present as schemes in the budget document, but as such these are more of financial entries, and therefore there is not much scope for developing a digital system for them, such as actual recoveries, to give an example, then we exempt these kind of schemes. But having said that, we'd like to again clarify that we had taken up an exhaustive feedback from ministries to get necessary schemes excluded in the last round, which we concluded in Q2 of financial year 21-22. So right now, because we are in the same financial year, we are not considering any scheme exemption request for this round. When we open up the dashboard for the next quarter, that is from the next financial year onwards, then given that a new budget document will become the benchmark, then we will allow for scheme exemptions based on the standard process that was followed last year.
Right, thanks, Gunjan. So then we have two queries again for the dashboard. Number one says, how many data entry users can be created per ministry department? And for the second one, for in the strategy action point module, the scheme name is not being reflected with respect to the previously added action points. So how can the ministries identify the action points and update the status if the schemes are not reflecting?
Thank you for the question. On the first question, the ministry can generate multiple data entry users based on the number of schemes. On the second, we would request you to kindly reach out to us personally, and we can resolve your query on a one-to-one basis. So would request you to reach out to the DMU nodal assigned to your ministry, and we would take this forward then. Thank you.
Thanks, Aishwarya. Then we have another query with regards to the timeliness of this exercise. Number one is so because the timeline currently stands at 11th April, then can the act be updated after 11th April, especially the status updates and revised completion date? Second, that if a department has not filled the dashboard for Q3, do they need to submit for both the quarters, so Q3 and Q4 of the last financial year now? Gunjan, can you take this up, please?
Thank you for the question. So we'd like to clarify that we undertook the last round in Q2 of financial year 21-22, which was in September. Then because it took us some, at that point of time, that this dashboard was still under development, and it took us some time to come up with the final reports for that round. For Q3, in order to reduce the burden on the ministries to fill up data, we have not actually not opened up the dashboard to get Q3 updates from ministries for any ministry. So therefore, the ministry need not fill data for Q3. We had last round in Q2, and now the data needs to be filled up directly for Q4 of financial year 21-22. So for this year, financial year, essentially we have undertaken this exercise on a half-yearly basis. But going onwards, because the dashboard is now in fully functioning, then the ministries will be required to enter details every quarter.
And generally every quarter we will open it up for a period of month or so. So This time, as you would have noticed, we started in March week, first towards the end of first week, and we given time till April second. I mean, end of first week and early second week. So that will be the cycle we will follow every year, every quarter. Sorry. Now, if for example you haven't updated your action, the status on the action points by 11th of April, uh, which means that you haven't updated, let us know what was the status of these action points as on 31st of March. Then we will use the previous updates for scoring of this quarter. This quarter meaning quarter 4, which ended in 31st of March. And then you will not have the option to edit it because the entry for quarter 4 will start, and entry for quarter 1 of the next financial year will start, and Q4 of this particular financial year will be stopped. And you will have the option of, and the information from here will be carried forward to Q1 of the next financial year, but you won't be able to make changes up until we open it up again, which will have a period of about 1 month. So that is what we are planning. We are still working if we can allow ongoing changes so that you can keep updating, and we need not necessarily open it up only a month before. We will look into that, but we also have a review cycle in between. So you must all understand that if we allow ongoing updates, then we will not be able to have clear-cut pictures on a fixed periods of time. So if we are reviewing in April end, or let's say May first week with the Prime Minister's office of the progress till quarter 4, and if we are still continuing to allow the progress, we will not be able to track how everyone fared as on 31st of March, which is why we have to set those cut-off periods, and we open up and close down the entries. That's the logic.
Thank you. I hope that clarifies. Next, we move on to a couple of questions with regards to the data entry users on the dashboard. The first one is that can the data entry user be created for scheme implementing agencies? Secondly, if there is a provision to add the scheme name during the self-registration of the data entry user, then during the approval of the user, which will be through the admin account, that will become an easy task. So the ministries currently feel that it is a little tiresome currently to find out from what scheme division the particular user belongs to. So that is the second point. And the third one is on if the ministries and departments want to find out about their last quarter reports, how can they do that from the dashboard? Aishwarya, please.
So on the first question, yes, a data entry user can be generated by an implementing agency or any autonomous body, which and this needs to be vetted by the ministry at the DSU head or the DGQI nodal at the ministry. Once you have internal approvals on the implementing agency or the autonomous body, you can go ahead and generate a data entry user. On the second point, currently we don't have that feature on the dashboard. We can look into it and make it easier for the ministries to assign schemes to the data entry users. But currently, we would request the ministries to please please assign the schemes using the scheme master module to a particular data entry user. Then the third question was with respect to last quarter submitted. So the ministries can use the reports module. We have performance reports where the ministry can select the financial year and the quarter for which they want to see the responses and the scores for the responses they've provided in the previous quarter. So the ministries can use the reports module for that. Thank you.
Right. So the next question is a specific question with regards to the STARS central sector scheme. So the ministry wants to know that under Part B, Section D, which is on the use of technology theme, this particular scheme does not use technologies like machine learning, AI, etc. for its implementation. However, the scheme supports research projects, some of which involve these technologies. Again, ML, AI, etc. So should the ministry select yes or no for use of technology under this theme? Gunjan, please.
Sir, according to the question, we are specifically looking at the use of these technologies in scheme implementation and monitoring. Therefore, if the scheme is not using these technologies to improve its implementation and monitoring mechanism so that it is able to collect better data, good quality data, then I would suggest that the ministry refrains from selecting yes for this question, even if the scheme is funding research projects related to the use of these schemes.
Thanks, Kunjan. So the next question is regarding the action points, and the ministry here wants to know if they can make the action points which they had entered earlier more granular by breaking that into more sub activities. Is that possible at this stage?
So, for example, if a ministry has created an action point and they want to make it more granular, what they can do is they can add a strategy action point using the module, mention the main theme of the action point, and then put a dash and add the granular points that they want to add under this particular theme of this action point. So that is something that the ministry can do by adding new action points using the same theme that they want to break it down further. I hope I was clear. In case there is need for more explanation, would request the concerned person to please unmute.
Thanks, Aishwarya. I am clear, but suppose last time we have mentioned broad activities, and it is showing tendency 89 days. Now, under that broad activity, we have completed few sub activities.
Okay.
So, how does that 89 days will disappear then? We have not completed the whole activity, but some sub activities we have taken up in last 3 months.
Sir, in that case, we can add the action points using this main theme that you have generated, and also add the completion date information. And then we can look after the previous action point that you had updated and maybe inactive or delete that once you have created the granular action points that you have decided to complete under the main theme. So maybe you can drop a mail to the respective DMO nodal and we can look into this further.
Okay, we will discuss offline. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'll repeat. If the ministry has selected not applicable as a response to any question, then the question's weight gets redistributed to other questions within the theme. In essence, that means that that question is not used in the scoring for that particular ministry. So therefore, you will not be penalized for any question that is not applicable to your scheme or for your ministry. Apart from that, in certain questions where there are sub options, and in those options we have not applicable option, then in that case, we have a specified range-based scoring mechanism, again to make sure that you are not unnecessarily being penalized for selecting just 1 out of 5 options instead of a higher number of options. So it is taken care of in the scoring. What is to be done in case for a particular scheme it is felt that the response any other option which is not listed. So like I mentioned, for all the questions where there can be certain degree of non-applicability to a specific scheme or a ministry, we have that option added. So we request you to select that option, and then it will be automatically taken care of in the scoring mechanism by the dashboard.
Thank you. Next, we move on to the aspect of pre-population of some of the responses on the dashboard. It was decided that for schemes, the responses which were entered last time will be pre-populated for the current round. But there's some ministry which is facing issue in this, and so what can be done in such a scenario? Secondly, specific question with regards to Ministry of Coal, which says that they had updated the action point in the last quarter, and the completion date which was given was 31st of December, but still they got a standard 1/5, so 20% of the marks. Please tell whether the action point timeline needs to be given quarter-wise. That's it.
Thank you for the question. So I would request the concerned person to drop us a mail with these queries, and we will revert to you offline. Thank you.
With respect to the scoring part as to why the ministry got 1 out of 5 marks, even though I think the ministry mentioned that the completion date was after it had provided the action plan. So I would like to clarify again the action plan scoring mechanism as we did during the last webinar. So what we do is that for every quarter, we will look at the number of action points that get due by that quarter. Then we calculate the number of action points that get completed within that timeline. For example, there were 10 action points that were due by the end of 31st March 2022 by the ministry. Then they completed 5 out of it. So therefore, the compliance is 50%, and accordingly, they will be given a score of about 3 out of 5. Now, let's suppose that the ministry comes up with an action plan such that there are no action points due in that quarter. So therefore, the denominator of the total number of action points itself becomes 0. So in this case, it indicates that the ministry further needs to fine tune its action plan. As we are undertaking such a massive exercise, we expect that there will be granular timelines and granular action points with at least one action point due every quarter. So therefore, if the ministry does not have any action point due by that quarter, then it is given a standard score of 1 out of 5, suggesting for the ministry to improve upon its action plan. So this is the reason ministry got the required score last time as well. If there are further doubts on this, it can be discussed on a one-to-one basis, sir.
Thank you. The next question we have is from DFPD, and they say that the department for FPD have 2 NSIs. One is FCI, the Food Corporation of India, and the second one is Central Warehouse Corporation, and both of them have their own financial management systems. So such schemes or NSIs, the ministry or the department feels that they should be exempted from linkages with PFMS and instead be awarded full marks. Gunjan, do you want to take this?
Sir, we have that not applicable option for PFMS linkage for the ministries for such reasons. So for these 2 schemes, we will request the ministry to select the not applicable option for this question. And as we discussed, if the ministry selects the not applicable option, its weight will get redistributed to other questions. So the question will not be used for scoring, and other questions within the same theme will be used for the ministry scoring. So the ministry will not be penalized for filling up not applicable in this question, sir.
Thank you. Next 2 questions which we'll take regarding the dashboard. So the first is with regard to data modification. Can the data be modified after it is submitted? And secondly, is there any feasibility going forward to making action plan option update dynamic during the complete quarter? Aishwarya?
So once you submit the responses, the dashboard does not allow you to edit any responses. So for the previous quarter, you cannot edit any response, and after you submit when you submit your approved responses on the dashboard, it cannot be edited. On the second question, I would like you to clarify on your point. You can unmute yourself.
Can the ministry, would the ministry like to clarify the question that they had? As far as my understanding goes, I think the question is about whether we can allow changes in the questionnaire on the action plan for this question throughout the quarter. Like we discussed, right now we open up the dashboard for updates by ministries, even for the action plan for a specified period of time, because we have a review cycle after these updates, and therefore we need timelines. We look into this feedback, and we'll go back and see if this feature can be enabled for some parts of the questionnaire or the action plan.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So regarding this action plan, what I mean to say is because it takes like within department, it takes it's like it will go through a decision making chain. So action plan may like be dynamic, or it can be made dynamic, because if for a particular action plan approval is going to come after say maybe 1 month, then we can update it if it's a dynamic option.
So are you saying that the status that you will update on the pre-prepared action plan, क्योंकि action plan तो इस पूरी exercise की शुरुआत में बनाना था, तो
Okay.
अब हमने ये पूरी exercise शुरू करी कि क्या काम करेंगे हम हम 2 साल में क्या काम करेंगे हर क्वार्टर, वो एक्शन प्लान तो लास्ट फरवरी में पीएमओ से इंस्ट्रक्शंस गए थे फरवरी 2021 में कि आपको अपने एक्शन प्लान्स बनाने हैं टू रीच द फ्रंटियर 5 आउट ऑफ 5 स्कोर्स बाय दिसंबर 2022. तो वो तब गए थे इंस्ट्रक्शंस, और उसके आधार पे सारी मिनिस्ट्रीज ने अपने अपने एक्शन प्लान बना लिए हैं. अब एक्शंस जो बन गए हैं उस पे कितना काम हो गया है, हम सिर्फ उतना पूछते हैं हर क्वेश्चन हर क्वार्टर में कि अगर 10 आपने 100 एक्शन पॉइंट्स डिसाइड किए थे 2 साल में करने हैं, उसमें से क्वार्टर 4 तक मान लीजिए 31 मार्च 2022 तक में 100 में से आप 60 एक्शन पॉइंट्स आपके हो जाने चाहिए थे, और उसमें से आप अगर रिपोर्ट करते हैं कि वो 60 में से 40 हो गए हैं, तो अकॉर्डिंगली 40/60 मतलब आपको 3.33 का स्कोर मिलेगा उस पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट, उस पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन पे. इस तरह से वो काम, ये पूरा सिस्टम बनाया गया है. तो अब इसमें कई बार मिनिस्ट्रीज, जैसे पहले भी किसी ने सवाल पूछा कि एक बार तो हमने फरवरी 21 में सोच के एक्शन प्लान बना लिया, अब काम करते करते समझ आ रहा है कि और कोई एक्शन प्लान में एक्शन पॉइंट्स ऐड होने चाहिए, तो वो ऐड करने का ऑप्शन जरूर है आपके पास. वो हर मिनिस्ट्री में जो एडमिन यूजर है वो कर सकते हैं.
Okay, that additional action point that can be done during after this 11th of April.
वो आप इसके बाद, हाँ वो इसके बाद आप कर सकते हैं, और उस पे कंप्लायंस चेक होगा फिर नेक्स्ट क्वार्टर ऑनवर्ड्स.
Okay.
Hope that answers the question. Right. Let's go on to the next question.
Hello everyone, this is Avinash from Minority Affairs. So my question is, like, mistakenly, like, if the questionnaires have been answered as 2022, 2023 quarter 1, is there a way to have that, like changed and put to 2021, 2022 quarter 4?
Okay, sir, we couldn't hear you. Your voice was not clear. In case you have a query, I would request you to please write it in the chat box and we'll take it up.
So is it audible now?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So mistakenly, like, if we have put the answers, I'm Avinash from Minority Affairs. So mistakenly, if there has been a situation where we have entered the questionnaire, answer response to the questionnaires in 2022, 2023 quarter 1. Right? Is there a way to have that, transferred to 2021, 2022 quarter 4?
So we will help you in case if it's an error where you have by mistake added the data on some other quarter. You can reach out to the concerned nodal officer who will get in touch with our core team, the Data Governance Quality Index core team here at DMU, and will help you out on the process.
Sure, thank you.
Next question we have is from the Department of Disability Affairs, and the question is, can the department make an action plan before constitution of the DSU? Because they feel that the DSU creation might take some time. So can they make an action plan before they create the DSU? Get the question.
Sir, ma'am, while it's possible for the ministry to start developing the action plan before the constitution of the DSU, but as per our suggestion, we would recommend that the DSU is first constituted with all the units, and then the action plan may be developed. The reason being that it would be important to take an overarching view at the level of the ministry and collaborate with various divisions to be able to develop a good quality and exhaustive action plan. So to put things in perspective, if a ministry is considering the development of a scheme MIS, it will not just be the scheme division who needs to be involved in developing an action plan for this. At the same time, we also need to involve the technology unit or the NIC people to ensure that the system allows for end-to-end digitization. And at the same time, we also need to involve data analysts so that we are developing a MIS is also generating information that will be useful for them later on. So therefore, right in the stage of the development of the MIS, it will be important to have multiple stakeholders be involved in the process and the decision making. Therefore, it is recommended that the DSU is set up. The necessary people who would be involved, they are given those responsibilities, and then they come together to develop this exhaustive and good quality action plan.
And also, basically the point is, ultimately it is the DSU and the team of DSU along with the support of all the scheme divisions who will be implementing this, right? So it is important that those people who are going to implement are the ones who are involved in the preparation of the action plan, and therefore the natural sequence of DSU first and action plan later.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to two data related questions on this exercise. The first one is that in case there is one common data set to two schemes, so can this be used to answer the questionnaire for both the schemes on the dashboard? The second one is that if there is a particular scheme where the domestic funding for foreign training is coming and which is not being implemented due to COVID, then and in that case the data for that particular scheme is more or less nil, then what is the option in this case for the ministry or department?
So with respect to the first question, if the data set is common for two schemes, I hope that the ministry is also trying to imply that they also have a common digital system or MIS for both these schemes. So it's not just the data set that is common, but the digital system being used for implementing and monitoring the scheme, that is also common. So in that case, definitely for both the schemes, the survey can be filled up just once, and you can reach out to the ministry nodal from DMO to understand how can the same be configured on the dashboard. Regarding the second question, that the scheme is not operational due to COVID and therefore there are no data updates, we would like to clarify, sir, that as part of DGQI, we are not asking for data on the performance of the schemes. So therefore, even if the scheme is not running in, is not fully functional right now, and therefore there are no improvements in the KPIs of the scheme and there is no current performance, it is not relevant for DGQI right now. What we are asking is that if there is a digital system in place for tracking and monitoring the scheme, and if that, and then we are going into understanding the features of the digital system. So therefore, even if the scheme is not performing very well right now due to COVID, it will have no implications on the DGQI score of the ministry, and therefore we'll request the ministry to fill up the questionnaire for this ministry, for this scheme also.
The next question is regarding the role of the lead and the analyst in this exercise. Gunjan, do you want to take this?
So we have already circulated a detailed TOR of the data and strategy unit of the ministry that need to be set up by the ministries. Ideally, I'll quickly try to explain the detailed roles, responsibilities, functions of the lead and analyst have been mentioned in the TOR, and we would request the ministry to have a look at the same. Essentially, the idea is that within every unit of the DSU, the lead is a person with a few years of experience who can come and guide the directions of the come and guide the unit in specific directions, and the analyst will be a person who is relatively who has relatively lower years of experience, but that person will be majorly involved in getting things executed on the ground. So for details, we'll request you to please refer to the TOR that's present on the website also.
So the next question that we have is regarding the action points. In case 90% of the activities or work for any particular action point is completed as of 31st March 2022, can that be assumed completed?
We'll request the ministries to refrain from doing so. Only if the action point gets fully completed, we'll request the ministries to get update the status as yes or completed only after that, because the entire spirit of the exercise is on self-assessment and for the ministries to understand if they're on the right path or not. There is no evaluation of third party that's going on here. So we'll request the ministries to refrain from the practice.
So I think we have about we have some time to open up and see if people have some questions. We can just take a few questions till 4:30, by which we have to close the session.
Good afternoon. Can we have two schemes sharing one digital system, that is MIS, under the same ministry?
Yeah, that should be fine. That's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
You can just let us know and we will take care of it at the scoring level.
Sure, thank you.
Hello.
So in case if anyone has, we would request if anyone has any questions, first they should raise their hands so that we can call them in a sequence, so that we have one person speaking at a time.
Hello. Can I ask a question? Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, we are actually from. I'm from Ministry of Agriculture. So we have a sub scheme under. We have a umbrella scheme under this. We have a sub scheme called Fasal. So we are collecting some data through mobile app, ground data, like field related data, agriculture field data, and that data is being uploaded on Bhuvan ISRO portal. There's a Bhuvan ISRO portal is there. So, and the same data is being accessed using login password, and we are using the data for assessment of satellite data. So we can give now that collected data reported digitally.
Yes.
Yes. So we can give the link on username password in there.
How are you collecting the data?
Through mobile, we have a mobile application, and the person go on to the field and they collect the data regarding the farm agriculture field, and the same data is being uploaded onto the server. Bhuvan ISRO portal is there, Bhuvan server.
So the mobile app that you are using, the application that you are using,
Yes.
is that an application of this scheme, or are you using the Bhuvan app?
No, actually it has been developed by ISRO only. It has been given to us. We have requested ISRO to develop, and it is especially for Fasal project they have developed.
Then definitely you can mention that it is being collected digitally, because it's an app designed for Fasal program.
Yeah, because we use that data for assessment of satellite remote sensing data. So I think we can give.
Yes, you can mention it is being collected digitally.
Okay.
That's so stupid. And now request Mr. Priyam Chaturvedi, who has raised his hand, to please unmute.
Hi, good afternoon. I have a specific query about our scheme STARS. So under the category of use of technology, there is a specific point 2 which speaks about the PFMS integration. So what we have is that the implementing agencies that we have under the STAR scheme, majority of them are linked on PFMS. However, the issue is that both these points 1 and 2 are conditional upon what reply we have given under question number 3 for data generation, which is a no for us. So is there any chance that we can sort of put a yes or partial here?
No, so we'd like to clarify that the PFMS linkage question is specifically not talking about the scheme linked with PFMS. We are saying whether the MIS of the scheme is linked with PFMS. And therefore, if you say that the ministry says that the scheme does not have a MIS, then the question automatically becomes disabled, because without a MIS, it is not possible to link the MIS with PFMS. So therefore, that's the linkage.
Yeah, because the entire idea of this exercise is not just to, see how well are these ministries using PFMS for tracking of flow of money. Idea of all administrative data systems or MI systems is to track outputs and outcomes. And in case if your MI system is not there at all, then from the DGQI perspective, it will have to be responded to as you do not have a digital system. Even if you are separately punching in data on PFMS in a computer separately, then that is not counted. Because as Gunjan said, the question is whether the MI system is linked to PFMS or not.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello. I'm
Yes, sir.
I'm the DDG from higher education, and actually we are having 32 schemes which are very diverse in nature. For example, we have even got some of the forms filled up. Some are say relating to teachers training. Some are adoption of villages for heritage development. For providing technological solution. And there is a scheme for heritage development, digitization of books and records, and population of the Indian knowledge systems. These are not the scheme-oriented, beneficiary-oriented databases where you can collate the your standard template doesn't fit into all these diverse schemes. So we are having a great problem. So for 32 schemes, we are each and every nodal officer. I am trying to speak and trying to understand the scheme, and they are also not clear. They have put no in most of the things, but actually they are having the systems also. So first thing is we would require some extension of time specifically, because the nature of this and your standard questionnaire doesn't fit in. And there is a problem for action plan also. What will be the action plan for this? Such a you want us to prepare data quality action plan for sort of very diverse and with very diverse and specific objectives. So it's not the standard beneficiary oriented or scheme oriented or just say like in rural development or other places. So kindly.
Yes, sir. We got your question, sir, and we understand your concern. So I'll first try to answer with respect to the standard questionnaire and the diversity of the schemes. Sir, we have tried to devise the questionnaire in a manner such that it is applicable not just to beneficiary-oriented schemes, but also to research-oriented, infrastructure-oriented schemes. To give a very a brief example, for example, in granularity, we are not just looking if beneficiary level data is being collected by the scheme. We have options to for the ministry to select if they are collecting data at the village level or at the facility level, if they are or at the project level, if it is a specific research project, if it's a specific college, in your case, or university oriented scheme, then at the facility level. And for all these options, the same score is being given to the ministry. They achieve the highest score on this parameter if they're selecting any one of them. So therefore,
one small doubt I am having, in most of the cases, we can even put the not applicable thing. But there are certain questions where you are having only yes or no.
Yes, sir, we can discuss. I will suggest we can discuss your concerns with respect to all your schemes on a one-to-one basis to understand. We'll work together with your scheme divisions to get the questionnaire filled up, and to be also able to understand with specifically with respect with respect to which questions you have some concerns.
Right, but we do have on some of the schemes which you mentioned, we do have some parallel examples from which we can draw the learnings and work with you in case if there are some opportunities for better digitization, work with the scheme divisions and do that. Wherever it is not possible, we can also work around that, but we can work with you on that as well.
There is a specific section where it is only yes or no.
Yeah. So Rajesh, I would just request if you can send us an email on this, and we do have ministry-wise nodal officers who will reach out to you to engage on this for further details.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Request Mr. Devendra Kumar Saini from DOT division, if you could please unmute yourself.
Ma'am, as of now, DOT does not have any MIS for the schemes that I am running, and I have registered as a data entry user here. But the data I periodically populate on the NITI Aayog's output outcome monitoring dashboard. So does that qualify that MIS platform is there?
No, sir. When we ask for MIS system, we ask for if the ministry has its own MIS system, that it is not just using for, I would say, data reporting on some selected indicators, which is the case we do it for dashboard, but where an MIS that has been developed by the scheme for its effective implementation, and then the scheme division itself is using it for its for monitoring its activities and as well as outputs and outcomes.
So actually, देवेंद्र जी, ये जो एक्सरसाइज है ना, डेटा गवर्नेंस क्वालिटी इंडेक्स एक्सरसाइज, ये इसमें हम ये नहीं पूछ रहे हैं कि आपका प्रोग्रेस कितना हुआ. प्रोग्रेस मतलब आप कोई एक स्कीम इंप्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं और भारत में, फॉर एग्जांपल लेते हैं भारत में अगर ये एग्जांपल है कि आपको 10,000 गांव में कनेक्टिविटी प्रोवाइड करनी थी, तो 10,000 में से कितनों में हो गई, ये ट्रैक करने के लिए आपके पास जो एमआई सिस्टम है, मान लीजिए अगर कोई एमआई सिस्टम है फॉर एग्जांपल, और उसके माध्यम से डेटा आ रहा है, हम आपसे ये नहीं पूछ रहे हैं कि कितने गांव में कनेक्टिविटी हो गई. ये पूरी एक्सरसाइज तो इस विषय में है कि आपका डेटा कैसे जनरेट हो रहा है, कैसे वो फ्लो कर रहा है उस एमआई सिस्टम में, और उसको निर्णय लेने में, पॉलिसी मेकिंग में कैसे यूज किया जा रहा है. हम सिर्फ डेटा की लाइफ साइकिल ट्रेस कर रहे हैं. हम प्रोग्रेस कितना हुआ उस स्कीम पे, उसका यहाँ पे कोई वेटेज नहीं है इस पर्टिकुलर डीजीक्यूआई में. वो हम आउटपुट आउटकम मॉनिटरिंग फ्रेमवर्क की एक दूसरी जो एक्सरसाइज है उसमें करते हैं, इसमें नहीं करते हैं.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I now request
Hello.
The DOFPD team can unmute yourself. Yes, sir.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah. Actually, I am from DGFT. We are managing two schemes. This is two central schemes. And basically, both the schemes are a reimbursement scheme. It depends on based on the applications submitted by the exporters. And this is a scheme for a duty drawback. One is the duty drawback and another is TMA scheme. TMA scheme was up to March 21st, and thereafter it has not been extended. And my question is, for that scheme, whether we need to fill up this form and submit data on the DGQI. And the second one is our duty drawback scheme. Duty drawback scheme is basically a reimbursement scheme. This is the amount of a duty paid by the exporter, application submitted to DGFT, and processed by the RA. RA, after approval of the application, send a request to headquarters to Delhi DGFT, and based on their request, that is demanded, DGFT headquarters releases the funds. That is the sole purpose, that is the sole duty of the DGFT. On both these circumstances, I want to know whether we also need to fill up this form.
Yes, because actually for both these processes, wherever it is a reimbursement scheme, you mentioned the entire process. आपने पूरा process अभी बताया, right from application to consideration and again reimbursement. Now that entire process should happen through a IT system and not physically. Hence, it is relevant for you to build an IT system if you don't have one, and then respond to DGQI questionnaire accordingly.
But we are not collecting any data on this purpose. We are simply getting the applications and processing the cases and reimbursing them.
I agree. So when we say data, we don't mean data about your exporters. We are not saying that what are the data points about that exporter. You will obviously be collecting. आप application form भरवाते हैं उसमें जो data है, application form itself is a data, and the metric, and for example your MIS system can track. किसी भी backend के लिए project जो administer कर रहा है उसके लिए important होगा ना कि 10,000 applications आई, 10,000 में से कितने बैच में कितनी प्रोसेस हो गई, कौन से स्टेज ऑफ अप्रूवल में है, क्या उसका इनिशियल चेक हो गया है, फाइल चल रही है, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. तो वो पूरे सिस्टम को ट्रैक करके यूजर को भी तो कभी भी रियल टाइम फीडबैक मिलना चाहिए कि वो कहाँ है, उसका प्रोसेस एंड एप्लीकेशन. उसके लिए क्या हमारी आईटी सिस्टम हो जाएगी. इट्स अ सिटीजन सर्विस डिलीवरी सिस्टम, एंड देयर and that system has to be responded to for DGQI.
Okay, and the first one is that is the TMA which was up to
I would request.
21st.
Yeah, I would request if you have any further doubts on this, we can engage separately. We have a little time available, and we have 2 more people who have their hands raised. So you can reach out to the nodal officer of this exercise at DMEO, and then we can engage separately to help you out on this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll now request the DGQI DOFPD team to please unmute and speak. We can see that you have unmuted, but we are not able to hear you properly. In the meantime, while DOFPD is fixing the technical error, I'd request the user who has joined from the username VMG to please unmute and raise their issues. Okay, Narayanan sir or Ajit Kotia sir, if you can unmute yourself and come in, please.
Yeah, I am Narayanan from DOPT in training division. Actually, we have a scheme called domestic funding of foreign training. Actually, we used to receive online applications, and we used to use the NIC data, which we have formulated, and we select people. Then later on we do it. But presently the scheme is not in operation for the last 2 years. And presently also it is still ban continuous. So that means that 21, 22, 2021, the data is more or less nil. Next year it may start, that is not in our hands. So may start in the later, and we have made only a budget provision of very nominal amount. We thought that if the scheme is approved, if the government take a policy decision, then we may go in RE. So that type of thing, what kind of data we have sometime written not applicable or data not collected, because this, tell me.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Yes, we addressed your question a while back. So I'd again like to repeat myself that the DGQI exercise is not about whether the scheme has been, whether there has been progress on the scheme or not. So therefore, all we are asking about is the IT system. So as long as there is an IT system which needs to be present to track the scheme implementation and its monitoring, we are going into the specifics of that IT system. So therefore, we'll request you to fill up the DGQI survey for regarding whether that IT system is in place or not.
So for our program, sir, it is not about how many trainings you have done. We are saying whether or not you have an IT system to track how many trainings have happened, what has been the outputs, how many people attended, and so on and so forth. We are asking questions only about IT system, that what is the new technological use and so on and so forth. We are not asking actual progress. That's what I explained earlier.
Sir, in this I just want to clarify. See, what we have is that for the selection process, we have developed a system by NIC. Afterwards, when the officer goes, officer comes after training, that are all in physical format by way of questionnaire, etc. That is not done digital. That's what I want to clarify. Selection process we are digitized, But for the final thing, monitoring and other thing, because it is not monitorable because people attend the training and go off. Now we are trying to get the feedback, other thing in a physical form, and then we have a data with us and we share it with people.
Yeah, but are you in the process? Are you in the process of digitizing those steps as well?
Because the program is not being implemented for the last 2 years, it is not sure.
I agree. I agree that since last 2 years it might have happened. Are you in the process of doing that? Because if you are, then the entire system of value chain, right from selection to training, post training and certification, till that point, a single system should be there for that entire process. And if it is still not there, you can start by reporting that we don't have a digital system, an end-to-end digital system, because you only
partial thing we can't mention. Partial thing we can't mention. We can say we have. I can say 75% we have. A little portion is not digitized. We can take steps to digitize it as and when it starts.
Correct. So you can build your action plan accordingly and respond to the questionnaire for the time being, saying you don't have a system, and then as and when you have, you start mentioning it as yes and start responding to the questions. So, and then further details, sir, we can talk about on a one-to-one basis. You can reach out to DMO Noodles, and we will be happy to help you on that. I will request Ajit ji to unmute and ask the question, please, because we are already done with our time.
Sir, it's regarding submission of replies in your application in the questionnaire. You have given the radio buttons. So in case of radio buttons, we can choose only one option. Do we have any facility to choose more than one option in any question?
Sir, we have wherever required and wherever we need to, the question is such that it should be having multiple choice responses. We have given that option in those specified questions itself. So if you have a particular, if you're facing a concern with respect to a particular question where we only have radio buttons and you would like it to be a multiple question, we'd request if you can reach out to us
yeah,
separately.
because we have kind of thought this through quite in depth and then decided whether it should be single or multi-select.
I just want to make here itself in part B, a data generation, point number 6, in which there are two things collected on paper by human resources and then fed on digital system. And the second one is collected using digital modes. We have both the options. So now what to choose?
Okay, so let's discuss this on a one-to-one basis. Because what data is being collected manually and then being fed vis-a-vis what is being collected digitally, it will depend on the criticality of what data is being done through which mode, and then we can decide. But let's discuss that on a one-to-one basis.
Okay, fine.
Due to paucity of time, I'll just request if the user called VMG, if we can have the last participant unmute before we close the session. So, yes, sir.
Sir, I would like to just submit that most of the, I'm from a National Knowledge Network division of MIT. So most of the questions in your modules are either not applicable or not relevant to the scheme. So how could we fill up the forms? That's very difficult for us.
Sir, we'd request if we can have a one-to-one engagement via our ministry nodal for us to help you understand how can you fill the questionnaire for your schemes, because we need to understand with respect to which questions.
Actually, last time we have requested the Niti Aayog to exempt this scheme because it's not applicable to that, but somehow it has not been done. That's the problem.
We can discuss separately, sir, the specific scheme with which you have a concern.
Because exemptions were looked at in detail, and wherever we thought a particular scheme is, should not be exempted, we have also given our reasons in detail. But in case if there is
the reason given by you, I am not agreeing with that, because
let's discuss that separately, sir. There was a time period to discuss that earlier, but we would be happy.
There is some kind of communication gap, I think. That's why that has not been.
Sure, sir. We'll try to discuss it separately, sir, and address your concerns. With this, we'd like to close the Q&A session also. We thank the ministries for actively participating in the Q&A session. I would request Shailendra Dwivedi, sir, Joint Secretary, DMO, to please provide his closing remarks.
Thank you, Gunjan. Thank you, everyone, for your very active and healthy participation in today's discussion. It is also World Health Day, and good to have a healthy discussion about data and data quality with such intensity and such participation. What one can see is that there has been some effort by all the ministries to update their responses to the questionnaire, and there are some issues where they would perhaps want some more hand holding. So as advised by the team today, please feel free to reach out one-to-one, and because there is less time left for closing of Q4 questionnaire updates, let us just work together to be able to update what we are able to share in the next 3-4 days. It is a journey, and every stage in this journey is crucial for us to be able to reach that frontier of 5.0. But it is important to have some data point around which we can have a detailed review for us to be able to see how we will be able to reach that frontier of 5.0 and what would be the pathway. So it's very important that we complete this task in the time that has been allotted for this. So let me just thank you for participating in this journey so far. With the dashboard, perhaps the task of updating your responses becomes much easier, and that is the intention with which the DGQI nodal team at DMEO, under the guidance of Director General and Anand, Gunjan, the entire team, you very well know them now with the sessions. You know how Aishwarya has been guiding you with the dashboard, or Vashvi, and we knew, or everybody has been working closely with you. So we are very much closely working as a team between DMEO and the ministries departments. Let us in that mode carry on and conclude this task in the time that is ahead of us. So thank you once again, and let us keep this consciousness about data quality going forward. That will make for a healthy government and a healthy governance in the country. Thank you so much. For those